Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Thea for Rhino, a major release. You have no idea how major this release is. Thea for Rhino is a fully integrated inside Rhino. It's fully integrated inside Rhino, taking full advantage of the Thea Render engine. The new version is a major release and not just a part of the Rhino plugin with a lot of section redesigned from scratch, providing an improved workflow. Some of the new exciting features include the darkroom, batch rendering, integrated material editor, online material repository, denoising, and a new tone mapping methods. Today's presenter, George Gliatis, is a 3D artist that joined the Thea Render team in 2015. He is now working as an application specialist for the Thea Render products, providing tutorials and support for end users. And let me tell you a little bit about Novedge and what we do. Novedge is one of the largest online stores for design software, and we offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's needs. So you can come to novedge.com. You can look at the Thea product page, get the Thea for your needs. If you use Rhino, you can also get Rhino on our website. So we have a one-stop shop, and we can also find Novedge on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, and all the social media out there. We always update the product with specials, new releases. Next week we'll have a webinar on Rail Clone. If you don't know what it's all about, check out our webinar registration page. And for more, I want also to remind you that this webinar will be recorded, so you can find it on YouTube and Vimeo. And now, without further ado, I will share George's screen. I hope you will be able to see it shortly. Okay, great, looking great. So George, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. So we can start. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for joining our webinar. In today's webinar, I would like to show you the new features that we have added to Thea for Rhino version 2, as well as several workflow improvements. And we have took into consideration the feedback from our users. I will go on to the live part right after a small introduction on Thea Render itself, just in case someone is not quite familiar with Thea. So let's see what is Thea Render. Thea Render is a biased and GPU renderer. The biased solution is a highly customizable one with full control over the rendered features, and it's best for scenes with many lights and walkthrough animations. The unbiased engine computes every lighting transfer. It's highly accurate, and it has a zero setup time due to the minimal settings that it has. And finally, Presto engine, which runs on both CPU and GPU at the same time, and it has been tuned for fast interactive rendering. Thea, at its core, is a spectral renderer. It's built on top of a strong mathematical framework. It has a very robust and biased core, and it can be seen as a light simulator. It performs calculation in the full visible spectral space, and it's able to render advanced phenomena like volumetric scattering and spectral index of refraction. Volumetric scattering allows the creation of advanced effects like fog in this case, or advanced materials like skin shaders, which require subsurface scattering. The Presto engine runs on both NVIDIA and AMD graphics cards. AMD support is for Windows only and for selected AMD cards. It has a multi-GPU support with split workload, and what that means is that it allows each device to work on different parts of the image, and that makes interactive rendering faster. Thea has an advanced material system creating physically based materials. It has a unique material layering system that makes complex material setups allows them to be created easily. Moving on to an overview of the new features that we added in the new version. We have a refresh on the user interface. We have dockable panels. Darkroom panels are now dockable and they can stay floating on the Rhino's interface, or they can be docked to a different place in Darkroom. Display settings can be a floating window now, and you can have it open while rendering in the viewport, while previously you had to have the settings open. So it's pretty convenient. And we have also reorganized Darkroom to give more space to the render image. Content browser has been enhanced with the content browser has been enhanced with the online repository, and now it's possible to access thousands of materials right from within Rhino. The advanced material editor has been redesigned from scratch, and it offers an amazing experience for material creation. It is now fully integrated, and it removes completely the dependency of Thea Studio and the external material editor. So everything happens inside Rhino. The new material editor also takes advantage of Thea's advanced material layering system, and materials can also be previewed while they're being edited with the material preview. We also paid attention to material presets. We wanted to make them we wanted the artist to be able to create most of his materials with material presets without always having to go to the full material editor. So now advanced materials can be easily created with the enhanced presets, and many of them have options like the plastic has translucency, glass and metal have imperfections, and many more. And the workflow that you can use now is that you can start with material presets, and then you can go on editing your material in the advanced material editor. One more feature that we added was Backface material support, and it's now possible to assign a different material to the back face of a single-sided surface. And that makes it easier to create materials like labels, tree leaves, sheets of papers, etc. Custom light evaluation, what that does is that it allows the user to select which material components will be evaluated for a given light, and that allows the user to optimize the scene and removes unwanted contributions. We will see more on that later on the live part. We have also added 2 new tone mapping methods on top of the default one, the standard display. It's filmic tone mapping, which gives control over highlights and shadows of the image. It's great for nearly every case and also for interiors. And it allows you to increase the exposure of the scene while keeping details in highlight areas and not having overburnt areas. Finally, we also have Reinhardt tone mapping. It has 2 methods, global and local. The difference between them is that local tends to create images of higher contrast, and the logic behind Reinhardt tone mapping is that it respects the chromaticity of the image, and that means that it tries to keep the hue and saturation values of the color while adjusting the brightness of its pixel. Finally, we also added optics denoiser along with a built-in denoiser. We will mostly focus on our webinar in NVIDIA's optics solution. Depending on the scene, it gives great quality even for low sampled images. And this gives instant feedback of how the scene would look like given time. And it also removes the remaining noise that might take a lot of time to clear in some cases. Just an overview of some of the features that we also added. It's faster position updates, and that means that moving, scaling, or rotating objects inside Rhino is now much faster when running interactively. And especially with complex objects, it now takes less time to transfer the object to the engine. We also added batch render. We will see this live. Stereoscopic rendering with top-down, left-right, and anaglyph modes. Open CL support, which, like I said previously, it's for Windows only and for specific GPUs, and it's under continuous development. There's also improvement in the convergence for scenes with many lights, and now noise converges faster in these types of scenes. Split frame is for multi GPU systems that can take advantage of the split frame option, and what that does is that each device renders a part of the frame interactively, and that leads to faster interactive rendering. And finally, photometric analysis. So with the presentation, this was the presentation, and we can move on to the live part where I will be showing you several of the features that we have added. This is a simple scene with our shader ball. The plugin itself is not just a port of the old one. We rewrote several parts of the plugin itself, and we paid great attention to user experience. And we made several changes to the whole interface to make the user experience to be as easily as possible with less clicks. So we generally refreshed the whole user interface. Like I said, it's now dockable. You're able to have panels on top of interactive rendering. Let me open Darkroom. The panels can be undocked from Darkroom. They can be left to the side if you wish, or you can leave them as they are. And let me start interactive rendering. I can also have the material editor attached either to the side, or you can have them side by side. And another great thing for this is that now, while rendering in interactively in the viewport, you don't need to go to the Thea Render settings anymore to adjust the display settings. You can just click on the open Thea display settings panel, which brings up the same panel as in Darkroom. And you can basically adjust every setting and then just close it. And it will be then docked back to Darkroom. We have also assigned shortcuts for two functions, which is camera focus to place the focal point, and to pick materials from the interactive rendering. So if I start interactive rendering, like I did previously, I can hold Alt, click on it, and it will bring up the material editor, which will allow me to change the color of the material. And I can just close it, or hold Control and click anywhere in the scene to place the focal point easily. And finally, another addition was the batch rendering, which has been asked by many users. Let me delete them. I will show you how you can add them in here. This has been asked a lot by our users, and we will see this in a while, how batch rendering works. And I would like to also show you some changes that we also did to the render settings. These are smaller ones, but we wanted to make it clearer for settings. So now the engine settings are in one place in categories. They're organized. They're easier to find them. And we also made a change to the adaptive BST engine, which had a lot of options. So basically what we did is we added ray tracing quality. You can select from a drop-down the quality for the ray tracing part of BSD. And same thing goes for global illumination. You can adjust the quality of global illumination using these options. And you can also select whether your scene is an interior or exterior, and that will make use of the field mapping technique, which speed things up. So let's move on to materials. And specifically to material presets. Material presets, like I said in the presentation, have been enhanced in a way that it allows you to create materials easily, and most of the time you wouldn't need to go to the full material editor to create anything that you wish, from plastics to metals or anything. And for example, let's go to the metallic paint. What we've added to the metallic paint is, let's select a color. We've added, for example, flakes. They can be seen here in the highlight area. You can have flakes easily without having to manually add them. And also, let me switch to the plastic preset. The plastic preset has lots of new options. At the end of the list, it's translucency, semi-transparent, or coating. I can easily make the plastic translucent by adding, let's say, 100%. Or I can even make it semi-transparent, let's say 50%. And I could also add a coating on top of that easily without going to the material editor to add the coating layer. You can do it straight from here. And once you have created your material with presets, we can go to the full material editor, integrated solution. Material editor uses layers. They can be found here at the top. You can move them around, except for the coating layer, of course, which is always on top. But you can move them around. You can adjust the weight, the layer weight, and you can also delete layers and change their type. So let's remove everything. Let's add a basic layer. And one nice feature of this is that you can change types of layers without having to add a new one, just to change to, let's say, glass. You can click on the icon right here next to the layer and switch to metal. And the rest of them, like glass, thin glass, or SSS. Let's switch back to basic. I can create, let's say, a metal layer. I can move it on top, and I can adjust the layer weight or I can use a texture map, like let's say this one. I can assign a layer, a map in the layer weight, and I can also adjust the weight of the metal channel. So let's remove it. Every layer has the default options like diffuse, reflectance, roughness, and bump, but there are also advanced settings like IOR, translucency, anisotropy, micro roughness, etc. You can hold down Control and turn them one by one if you need them. For this one, I will just check translucency and adjust it accordingly. And maybe we can also add a coating layer on top of that. One addition that we made to the material editor, which I really believe it's very convenient and it will, I think, make your life easier, is that we now have a content browser integrated inside the material editor. So you can just click on the left pointing arrow right here, and you have access to local materials that can be seen here, or you can also use the online repository to add materials to it. For this example, let's say that I want to add a material, but I want to try out a few materials before applying it because it will override the material that I'm currently using. And so we have added the interactive preview button, which once you click it, you can go through different materials. You can preview them without overwriting the existing one. And whenever you want, you can just double click on it and you get the material, and you can go out of the interactive preview mode. And the same thing goes for the online repository. I can turn on interactive preview. I can go, let's say, to cloth. I can double click. It will start downloading from the server. And once done, it will be saved locally. You can see the little icon on top. And I can now close these. And speaking of materials, let's go to the content browser. Like I said earlier, content browser has been enhanced with the online repository. You can see all the categories that are also present in the online repository. You can just double click on each one, like let's say this one. It will start downloading. You can see the little icon. It's now saved locally, and if you happen to click on it again in a different project, it will simply just use the local version instead of downloading it, and it will be added to the bottom of the list. Some other features is that you can scroll down, and once you scroll, you can see that it's retrieving data. It will bring more thumbnails, more materials to it. In this case, there might, you can see this. So the more you scroll, the more materials you see. And there's also the option to sort them by downloads, recent, or by their name. So let's move to the custom light evaluation feature that I said earlier. In this scene, you can see that I have two lights. The one is on the left, light A is on the left backside of this object, and the other one is on the right side. What we have added is now is that you can select, let's say, light A, which is on the backside. I can go to properties, and select light properties, and you can see that we now have a custom evaluation area. Let me start interactive rendering. Let's switch back to a plastic translucent material to showcase what custom evaluation can do, and also add translucency. Great. I will select light A, go to properties, and Thea light properties. I can say that this light, I wouldn't like this to affect the diffuse channel of every material in the scene, so I can just check on the diffuse layer, and now only the second one contributes to the scene. And the same thing goes for the rest of them, like translucency. If I click on it, light A will not contribute to the translucency of this object. And same goes for reflectance. I can also uncheck the reflectance, and you can see that we now no longer have reflectance, and also the rest of them. So this basically gives you total freedom when you want to set up a studio or something like that, and you want a light to only contribute to the diffuse part of the materials, or let's say to the reflectance, or to only contribute to translucency. And this now can be done with custom light evaluation. So let me open a scene and show you how Backface now works. Let's start interactive rendering. In this scene, okay, let me show you first that it's just a simple surface, a single-sided one, folded like this. I applied a Thea material on it. It's too much. I have applied a Thea material on it, and I would like to have a different material for the back face. So all I need to do is to select the surface, go to properties and Thea object properties. And from the back face material section, I have a enable checkbox and a drop down that will allow me to select the material that I would like to see in the back face of the object. So if I just click on the enable button, you can now see that I have different materials with Backface support. So this makes it very useful for, let's say, labels, leaves, and sheets of papers and stuff like that. So let's go on and open this scene. And I would like to show you the rest of the features. Batch rendering. In this scene, I have set up 4 name views. I have saved them. And batch rendering, the way it works is that I can switch to the render queue tab. And once I click on the refresh button, I get all these name views inside the render queue. And what's great is that I can go through each one of them. Of course, I can delete them, or I can exclude them from being rendered from the queue. So the edit option allows you to set different resolution sample limits, sample or time limits. Select which engine you wish to render this specific view, and if the image will be denoised at the end. So for to gain some time, I will use a really low sample for this scene for each one of them. Let me first delete these ones. Okay. Let me do the same for the rest one. Okay. So all we need to do now is to click on the process button, And once done, I can go to, let's say, desktop, the folder that I opened earlier. Let's call it headphones. And also select the file type, the image format, PNG in this case. And once I click save, you will see that it will start going through the queue. And you can see that it's rendering currently batch, it's rendering batch camera 1. It will go to the rest of the scenes. Let's give it 2-3 seconds more to finish the batch. And it will go to the final image. And so it has finished. And if I go to the batch folder where I saved, you can see that it saved all the images, and it has also added an underscore after the name that I gave with the name of its named view. So the next feature that I would like to show here is, let's use a different resolution. Let's say 16 samples. I would like to show you NVIDIA optics, the denoising method that I will be using. You can select the denoising method from the render settings panel. It's now on optics, and all you have to do to enable denoising is to check the denoise channel and nothing more. You just check on the denoise channel, and I can start rendering. I have used 16 samples, and that gives noise to the image. You can see it in areas like here, or even in the wood on the background. And you can see the denoised image by clicking on the channels selection and switch to the denoised channel. So in case you didn't see that, you can have a look at this area. This is the raw image with low samples, and the one with optics. So it's very convenient because you really get a very instant feedback of how it would look, and you can use more samples. And if you have remaining noise, you can use optics, and that will remove all this noise. So let me switch back to the color channel, and this is the last feature that I will be showing you. It's tone mapping methods. I am now using the Filmic. Let me switch to standard. So this is the default tone mapping method that was in the previous version of Thea for Rhino. You can see that we have in this scene areas which are over bright. They are burned, like here, or even the knobs. The first tone mapping method that we added is Filmic tone mapping. I nearly use it all the time. Filmic provides better control over the highlights and shadows of the image, and it gives a photographic look to it. And with Filmic, it is also possible to increase the overall exposure of the scene without losing details in areas with bright highlights. So let me switch to Filmic. You can see that I instantly get a much more balanced image without having all these burns that we saw earlier. It has two options. It's highlights and shadows. Increasing highlights will allow me to have even more highlights in the scene, while the shadows parameter controls the overall contrast, so I can bring it down. And that leads me to the next method, which is Reinhardt tone mapping. And let me tell you a bit about Reinhardt. It comes with two methods. It's Reinhardt global and local. Both methods respect the chromaticity of the image, and that means that the Reinhardt will try to keep the hue and saturation levels of the color, and they will try to adjust the brightness of each pixel. They perform great for low contrast images, and the difference between them is that the local tone mapping method creates images of higher contrast. This might not be the case for this exact scene, but you can see some little difference, a little bit contrast with local. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope they were interesting for you. If you happen to have any questions, I will try answering them. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, George. Yeah, we have a few questions. So, first of all, how many GPUs at your machine that you use today?
I have two. I have 1080 and a Titan X.
Okay, good.
And I had the CPU disabled.
Okay. Okay, second question. Can Thea be set up to batch render different files, like the headphone scene, then a chair scene, then a kitchen scene? Like if I have 10 different products, I want to set up the render overnight.
No, this cannot happen, but it's something that we should consider. It's, yeah.
Okay.
It sounds convenient.
Okay, that's a good feedback for maybe the next release.
Yeah, of course.
Good. Thanks, Chris. And what about the model libraries of Thea 1X? How can I handle them?
All materials from the previous version, they can be imported. Also models and skies, they can be imported just like in Thea for SketchUp. I think right now there is a function for this. It's called Thea import. Yeah, there's a function. I can't remember it right now, but it is possible to select lib Thea files, and they will be expanded to the Thea data folder that you have. So and they can be accessed from the content browser.
Same goes for models, right? Can import from
yeah. Okay. Material models and skies.
Okay, great. I think that was the last question, but I'm gonna leave the. Okay. No.
Thank you.
We have another one. We have another one.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris says, can Thea be used inside Rhino to make animations, like a fly-through animation or a turntable animation?
It is supported. I think that there were some issues, but I can't remember right now. If Chris wants, he can send me an email. He can send it to support@thearender.com, and I can answer it. Or do we post these answers on Novedge somewhere?
Yeah, we could.
For everyone?
Yeah, if we have enough answers, yes, but I don't think we have enough questions.
Okay.
So, yeah, Chris, email support@thearender.com, and maybe the subject should be not Novedge webinar question, and then George will make sure to start a conversation with you in private. Okay. If that is it, I will take the screen back in a second and start saying goodbye. I want to thank everybody for joining us today and attending. And I want to show you exactly where you can find Thea for Rhino on the Novedge website. You go to novedge.com, then you can type in the search box Thea, and you'll have all the options. And we also sell Rhino at the great discounted price now. So you should check both the products out immediately. And I want to remind you that we're all over the social media. So if you want to look at before you buy anything, check us out because we always have great promotions and specials. And next week we'll have another webinar on the product called Rail Clone. And let me see. I want to remind you that we are recording this broadcast, so it will be posted later today on YouTube and Vimeo on the Novedge channel. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you, George, and have a great rest of the day, everybody.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.